Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's masterclass, your 2025 career comeback, jumpstarting your job search with the tools and confidence you need with our friends at Prepare to Launch You. Today, I am joined by Susan and Kelly, founders of Prepare to Launch You, and we are going to cover the latest LinkedIn resume trends to navigate today's hiring landscape and setting you up for the ultimate success this year, whether you're making a move, returning from a break, or anything in between. And I think you'll leave feeling motivated, prepared, and ready to relaunch. And I know we have a ton of information to dive into today. So before we get started, just a few notes from our end. This session is recorded and will be available here on LinkedIn and on our YouTube channel. We will have time for a Q&A at the end. So add any questions that you may have for Susan and Kelly into the comments. And then also you'll receive an email after this with lots of details and a note from Susan and Kelly.
Thanks.
And Susan and Kelly, welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Be here.
We're
We love
always
you guys.
happy to see you.
Oh, okay. So before we get started, I just wanted to maybe kind of jump into a few questions about, how you both are and getting to know you. But I'm curious, have you set any intentions or resolutions for 2025?
Well, I have a big birthday this year, but beyond that, mine is health because I had a recent knee surgery and whatever. So for me this year, the focus is health. I just want to be strong and I want my knee to bend further than 90 degrees and all of the good things. So,
And we're sending you lots of good thoughts.
Yeah. I'm not someone who sets resolutions, but one of my things that I'm really working on is being better at managing my own time and creating boundaries for myself, because sometimes I'll get deep into something and not be able to navigate my way out. So I've started setting timeframes. I even have to set my clock to just, I don't have to finish this today. I can finish it tomorrow. So that's for me, just a little bit of time management.
That's the best way to put it, how to dig yourself out. Because I find myself in that a lot. I'm a yes person until I'm like, oh, wait.
If you can do that, I can go deep and I can go till 2 a.m, but it doesn't benefit me.
Right.
And then you'll be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then another thing is, I'm sure you both are very productive. So do you have a productivity hack?
I have one that I love, and I started this one last year. I reply to as many emails as I can on my phone, because when I'm on my phone, I think it's partly subconscious. I think because it'll say sent from my iPhone. When somebody sends from the iPhone, I'm not expecting grammatical and spacing perfection. It also allows me to dictate. So that saves me a lot of time. Whenever I can, I will reply to an email on my phone as opposed to sitting down and typing it and trying to make it look good and et cetera.
Yeah.
I love that.
I know. And that's, it keeps you.
And you get it checked off your to-do list, because sometimes those emails build up and you're like, I'll respond to that. And then you never
forget.
do.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think mine is more around the time chunking. That is something that I use all the time. And when I put time on task, I get far more done when I know I only have an hour to do something than if I know I have 3 hours to do something. So I'm pretty religious with this. It's like I have my space in the day for exercise, working out, kind of my morning routine, and that sets me up for success. But then it's like time on task. I had to get something to her yesterday. I was like, give myself an hour to do this, and that's it. Because if I say, oh, you have the next 3 hours to do this, then, it's like
nature abhors
the
a vacuum.
phone, there's many other things that can get in the way. And so I do that. I do that with household tasks. I do it, I make a game out of it. I think that's part of having boys. I don't know if this is something that you do with your boys, but everything is a game to boys. So to get them
it's a competition.
Or a competition. Yeah. Exactly. So it was if I could turn it into how fast can I get the dishwasher unloaded? Without broken dishes. Yeah, without broken dishes, who can do it the fastest, and turning it into a little competition.
Okay, I actually love the gamify thing, because I think it's so, and even with toddlers, I'm like, okay, guys, how quickly can we do this? Or you have to do it because it's they're, or they can win something. So, but gamifying it for me with my toddlers quickly turns into bribing them. So
whatever works.
Okay, well, we have so much to talk about today, so I will let you all dive into our masterclass.
All right. So
is it pop up?
do you pop it up for us?
I'll pop it up. There we go.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We were talking about confidence and tools for your job search in 25. One of the things that we consider when we were presenting this is very often we are focused specifically on people who've taken career breaks, but this time we're not really gearing it specifically to that. We will have one slide that really talks just to that, but the tools that we're teaching today they kind of transcend your situation. We're assuming that the people who are attending are either making a career pivot, a career return, or maybe just a career change.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that you have the right tools to get you started. All right.
A little bit about us.
Mhm.
If you haven't met us yet, we're Prepared to Launch You. That's our company. And we are both moms of 4. We both took caregiving breaks ourselves and successfully returned to work.
Yeah.
And
Well, and this is Kelly and I'm Susan. Usually
Yes.
we're flipped.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Sure.
always sit on these sides.
Yeah.
But Kelly, as she said, is recovering from a knee injury and she's got to have her leg up on that side. So
Yeah.
we're like messed up. We have a combined 40 years of experience helping women navigate work and life transitions, and we are widely recognized experts in the field. We have courses on LinkedIn. We do major corporate presentations. We're doing one tomorrow for Samsung.
Yep.
We've worked with major universities like Northwestern, and even the Mom Project has called us, quote, their career relaunch experts. So we know our stuff.
Yeah. And we have extensive recruiting and hiring manager experience and insights. And with our help, women from across the globe have consistently landed great jobs. It's actually our favorite thing to
And
have unfold when people are working with us.
Today, we're here to help you. All right. So job searching is always hard, but some situations make it harder. And so these are the 3 challenges kind of where we see where you may be here.
Yeah.
So the first one is relaunching. If you are returning to work after a career break, you have perhaps lost skills, perhaps some lost network, a lot of loss of confidence, and perhaps a market that's not quite ready to understand what you've done and value what you've done during those careers. So that can make it a little bit more challenging.
Yes. And the next one is pivoting. And we see this all the time in people that cross our paths. So this might be if your interests have changed or your field has changed in some way and you're just, you're not a fit. It's not a fit for you anymore. And so you might be looking at the resources that are around you and outside to maybe pivot into something new, something that is more of a fit for your life now. Where
I want to say something about pivoting.
Yeah.
If you are a pivoter, we just released a YouTube video on pivoting, because a lot of people will pursue a pivot, but it's really not what they need.
Yes.
It's so understanding if a pivot is the right decision for you. And it's a short YouTube video. And I bet you Megan can put it in the chat for us.
And a pivot there's all different there's a spectrum of what a pivot looks like. A pivot might be, I am leaving this career and I'm moving into this career. A pivot could also look like, I am just softly moving from
this department to that department.
Exactly. So there's a whole spectrum. And so, definitely check that out.
We also know that a lot of TMP followers are looking for flexibility.
Right.
And if you think that you're going to find the perfect flexible option, advertise as such, you're wasting your time.
Right.
So very often you need to advocate for yourself. So just if you are that kind of person who's looking for flexibility, that can be another challenge for you because they're not always regularly or readily offered. Sometimes you have to ask for it.
Exactly.
All right.
So today we're going to look at your job search toolkit. And number 1, first and foremost, we really subscribe to the fact that you have to get your mind right. No matter how talented or accomplished you are, if your approach to your search is coming in with some low confidence, you'll fail. I mean, we see it time and time again. We're going to talk about confidence later today in this course. So your mindset, the mindset you will create or the mindset you have will either create or prevent you from having success.
It's often the biggest obstacle.
Yeah.
Also a brand. I'm not a big fan of using the word brand and commodifying human beings, but it's what's commonly used. It's who you are. It's what you offer. It's what you want. And that's key. Very often women, particularly those who are either changing careers or re-entering the workplace, are happy to just grab whatever scraps are thrown their way. We don't want you doing that. We want you really thinking thoughtfully about, what do I want at this point? And making sure that you can differentiate yourself from other people that are also pursuing those career options, and that you really know who you're talking to.
Absolutely.
Your audience.
Right. And that goes with having a plan. So you must know your audience. You must know who you're talking to, and you need to reach them in a different way. So not just the job board. The job board actually is something that we steer you away from because
it's called posting and praying.
Yeah. You're gonna land your job from knowing people, connecting with people.
And the last, and they're not last, they're all integrated, is having your story. So you need to craft it, you need to practice it, you need to connect the dots of your experience. So if you worked and then took a break and then you're returning to work, connecting the dots between what you did before, what you did during your career break, the valuable work that you did then, and how it prepares you for moving forward. If you're pivoting, how do I take this work that I've done over this 15, 20 years and repurpose it? How do I translate how this skill is transferable to this role?
Yeah.
And all of that is done in crafting a good story. And the story will be told in multiple modalities.
Right.
It'll be told in an interview, in a networking call. It'll be told on a resume, in a LinkedIn profile, etc. But having that foundation is essential.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to break down all of those different components of your toolkit. So tool number 1 is your mindset, and those negative voices inside your head, right? It's you want to,
well, I mean, the ones that we hear most. Who am I to think I can do that?
Yeah.
So that's big with the returner. It's big with the pivoter too.
Yeah.
What if I can't do it?
Right.
That general fear if it's something that's new. My skills are too dated or I'm too old. We hear that. It's so funny to hear the old thing because, you know, we're getting older. We have students who are 39 turning 40 and like, oh my God, I'm too old.
And you're not.
No.
And you're not.
And
even if you are our age, you're not too old.
You're not too old.
Yeah.
There's also defeatism. And I think that this is particularly visible now. We're going through a big change. We're going through a change in the country's leadership. Yeah. There's a lot going on in the world, financially, militarily, in every way. And those things do impact, I would say, the speed at which hiring is accomplished, right. But it doesn't put hiring on a standstill. But it's easy to think, well, nobody's even hiring right now. There's too many things going on. But that's a defeatist attitude that doesn't help.
Right. And if your brain is hardwired for negativity, that is the way we come. We're fight or flight beings. And so if you are feeding the beast, then you're going to grow those neural pathways in your brain to be even stronger. But there is real neuroscience now that is out there, that is data that's telling us that we can push through that and we can build those positive neural pathways so that our default becomes positive versus negative. And so you have to practice this. Like, it's a tool for you to practice. So we teach something in our course called combat versus compile. And compiling is, like I said, it's feeding the beast, right? It's finding those people who are in like situations, and then you just go in and you just feed the beast of negativity. And so possibilities just get sucked right out of the room. You're not thinking in that way. You're not thinking creatively anymore. You're thinking in the negative. You're thinking in fear. So so you're looking for proof. And so you want to avoid this. So combating is killing that beast. That's seeking and sharing those positive messages. It's finding those people around you that can flip the switch and start to look at it from, well, what is going well? What have we learned? What's the next right move to make based on what I just learned from that thing that maybe had me on the mat? Maybe I went on the 3rd interview and I thought this was it. I thought it was happening for me and I didn't get it. And so it's really hard to lick your wounds and pick yourself up and keep yourself going, except the beauty of failing is that you just learned so much and it's going to take you in the next right direction. We'll talk more about that when we talk about confidence.
One of the things that we do in one of our earlier, I think maybe our first webinar with the Mom Project, which I think is still alive on YouTube, we talk about the first 3 steps in executing a career relaunch. We talk a lot about your team or your tribe, the people you surround yourself with. It's really important.
Absolutely.
And if you want to do a deeper dive on that, you can dig up that webinar too. We kind of go through the different roles you want to fill.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about building confidence, we're kind of looking at it in 2 different ways. And the first is just thinking about, what would I do if I were more confident?
Yeah. So just play with us for a minute here, because what we're trying to do here is have you create that vision of what would life look like if you did have more confidence. Would you go after that reach job? Would you set boundaries and say no to things and people that are no longer serving you? Would you step out of your comfort zone to network with others? And would you ask for help? So really create that vision in your mind of, if I let more confidence into my life. And I think the biggest and most important truth that you know and understand is that confidence is not a feeling. It's not a feeling. Confidence is action. Confidence is the willingness to try even when you have doubt. That's what confidence really is.
And even when the risk is failure.
Absolutely. So it's taking the opportunity to try, just push yourself forward and try. And so when we hear people say like, oh, I lost my confidence or my confidence is gone. No, you just stop trying. And so that's what confidence is. Confidence is action.
Right. So there's some myths that surround it though.
Right.
And one is that, well, I'm not a confident person, because confident people are all the loud ones in the back that are so social and extroverted.
Right.
But the truth is, confidence is how you show up. It's not how loud you are. In fact, often the most confident person is not the loud person, because they have nothing to prove.
Absolutely. And if you are that person that tends to err on the quieter side, how are you using that space to forward your job seeking or your pivot that you're making? What are you doing so that it feels like a fit for you to connect with people? Because the one who is loudest in the room might not even be really thinking about those things themselves. And so if you are that person that's the loudest one in the room, really think about your own self and setting your own intentions of, what do I really want to get out of this? What do I want to try? Do I want to try to listen more today and talk less? Is that going to be something that's going to net me something that I'm looking for if I try that out? And that's going to help build your confidence. Okay.
Confidence should feel easy and effortless.
Yeah, no.
Nothing worth doing is easy and effortless.
No, absolutely not. And action is hard. And we know it's hard. We have felt it and experienced it ourselves in launching our own business, putting yourself out there. I mean, there were times where we were like, what are we like? What
we were faking it till we made it.
Yeah. And days where you wanted to just like, let's not do anything today. However, what we did know is that action is something that's supposed to be challenging. And then this one I already kind of touched on is that I lost my confidence. If you are putting that on repeat or saying that just even in your own mind, it's not true. You just probably took yourself out of trying. You're hiding in some way. And so if you get yourself back out there and you start trying, even if you feel doubtful, your confidence will grow in return. All right.
So I think one of the things we're talking about as we're preparing this particular side is, how much are you willing to push yourself?
Yeah.
How much are you willing to push yourself, not to find confidence, but just to reclaim it?
Right.
And some of the things that go along with that are a willingness to not know the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to push yourself to look like foolish, look like you don't know what you're doing,
and be okay with not knowing.
Be okay with being imperfect out of the gate. This is something new. You might be exploring something that you've never explored before. If you're pivoting or if you're relaunching your career, that's okay. But what is your willingness? Are you willing to try? Because the willingness to try is how you are going to gain that confidence that you want. So we wanted to just give you 5 quick tools that you can take with you today in your back pocket and try in your own life. So number 1 is forget the uneasiness and just do it. So forget the feelings piece of this.
And
just
give yourself that mantra, I am someone who tries.
Yes, that's it.
It's interesting. This is the kind of advice that you would give your children. You probably do give your children, but sometimes you don't accept it ourselves.
Yep. This is a great one. Act like your future self, or act like someone who's doing it. We hear this in our course all the time with our students. Our students will come back and they'll say, okay, I did my best Susan impression and I negotiated and asked for more. Or I did my best Susan impression and I closed that interview and found out I was moving on to the next stage. So taking on the persona of someone else when you don't feel confident can be to your benefit. I mean, even Beyonce does this, right? She's a superstar, super rock star, right? But Beyonce turns into Natasha Fierce when she goes out on stage, and that's how she kills it when she's out on the stage.
I bet you a lot of them do that.
Yes. So it's taking on a persona. That can be a little tool that you can help. You can use this in interviews. You can use this in networking calls. Just take on the persona that's going to, be that self that is just so confident.
And like any performer, prepare and practice. We are big believers in scripts.
Yep.
There's a mind-body connection. There's a kinesthetic connection by actually writing something down to learn it better. Use tech tools for support. LinkedIn has a great tool if you're practicing interview questions. It's on the left in your dashboard. You can just practice with the basic LinkedIn subscription, practice your interview questions, shift your mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, when you're in those darkest moments,
Mm-hmm.
right? When if you are someone who's on the call today and you've been applying and putting yourself out there and just asking yourself, like, why am I even trying? Why am I even doing this? Well, trying is learning. Trying is growth. Every single time you put yourself out there, every time you connect with someone, every time you try and show up to a webinar like this, you are learning something that's going to help and support you for the next thing. It's going to push you somewhere. So that's why you do it.
And that effort leads to growth.
Yeah.
We also want you just to think about how you're framing yourself. It's very easy. And it's especially now because we're using social media, LinkedIn, to find jobs.
Yes.
It's very easy to compare yourself to other people. And comparison kills progress at any age, in any stage.
Yes.
So this is your journey. Your journey is different than everyone else's, and it's going to take its own path, and it doesn't matter what other people are doing.
Yes. I mean, this is an example of this, or just even in our own building of the business. We would have these moments where we would start like looking at like all of these other companies that kind of were developing around the same time. Why is this doing this? Why is that? And then
why does the Mom Project have so much more money than we do?
Yeah. And we would inevitably come back to looking at what nobody is us. And that's the same with you. Nobody's you. You have a unique package and journey. And so that is, you can't compare yourself to anyone. All right.
So your brand.
Yes.
So we talked about this. The brand is, who are you? What do you do? So the basic elements, my training and education, my strengths, personal and professional. We do an exercise in our class where we have our students talk to other people and say, what do you think my strengths are?
Yeah, because we're not always great at defining our own strengths, and you want to be really clear. So sometimes it's just the permission of somebody saying to you, you know what, Susan, you're a really good writer. Right. This is something that you do really well. And then all of a sudden it's easier to own the fact that like, I'm a really good writer and that's something that I do really well. So, so doing this exercise in particular and asking people around you, what are my strengths? Because you want to be able to speak those strengths.
It's also nice to hear it in someone else's language.
Yeah. Yep.
Not just in a little bit more. Oops, it's this camera. Are we still here? Uh-oh.
Yes, I still hear you.
Should we reload?
No, I don't think so. I think that maybe. Oh, are we here?
I hear you, but I don't see you.
Okay, we got to turn the camera back on. I mean,
this is the beauty of live events.
I know you don't really need to see us.
Right, maybe right here.
Edit name, stop mic cam. Start cam right here.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. You're back. Oh, you went away.
This is the.
Oh, you have to change here.
You do that. Okay. Maybe in settings. No, I have to go back to this. Go here.
Well, the good thing is the comments are. Everyone's like, yes, we can hear you. So I'm glad that everyone's here and paying attention. These are such amazing takeaways from Prepare to Launch You. And just a reminder, as we're kind of taking a pause, if you have any questions, add your questions into the comments and we will get to those at the end.
But that's on.
That's on. I would just do the settings and see. Give us 1 sec. Here we go.
Yeah, you're fine. Thank you, everybody. This is the magic of being live on the internet.
But you know what's good about this? Actually, it's a great for anybody who's working at StreamYard is watching this. It's good for them. Yes. It's good for them to get this feedback because it says it did work.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go through our slides. We'll figure it out by the time we get to the
when we get back to the big screen.
So the other elements of your brand are your skills, and you're not only looking at direct skills like I can manage a balance sheet, but the other skills that are transferable. And along with that, you want to count all experience. One of our favorite lines is work, whether it's paid or unpaid. So whether you started a nonprofit, or you were on a nonprofit board, or you were the president of the PTO, whatever your skill was, very important that you first of all give yourself credit to count that. Because no one's going to believe that it's worth anything if you don't believe it yourself. And we can just tell you from our years and years of experience that it matters. Matters most when you present it well. And then the last piece of it is your accomplishments. And again, giving weight to your accomplishments in your old work, in your current work, as a volunteer, as a caregiver, as a per diem worker, whatever it is, allowing yourself to own those accomplishments. And as we mentioned, if you're unsure, ask people.
Ask people. You want to mine for these things. You want to mine for an understanding of these things. And
sometimes you can't remember them.
No, you can't remember them. And a part of when you are talking to people about this, all of a sudden that facility with the language and the jargon for maybe the work that you were doing before comes, and you think, oh my gosh, I forgot I worked on this project, or I forgot I did this.
We actually include a couple of questions here that you could use just if you're not quite sure how to ask, like, what do I do best? What are my most memorable accomplishments? I love this one. If we were working together on a project, what role would you want me to fill? This one's telling because, for example, I ran a big balance sheet, years ago in a corporate job in tech, but that's not what anyone would want me to do.
Right.
I don't think. Maybe you would.
I wouldn't mind if you did that.
Okay. So these are the ways. The other one I love is consult your old performance reviews. Hopefully, and if you are not doing this already, start today. Keep a me file of any thank you note that you get. If it's a text, take a screenshot of it. If it's an email, save it, print it, whatever it is. But keep that file of all of those encouraging and affirming messages, texts, and emails you get, because you'll see a theme over time. Yes. And it's just a great thing to look at when you're having a bad day too.
And it also is going to help you later on down the road when you're building your resume and your LinkedIn profile, or when you're interviewing, you're going to be able to pull these words together much
just have some unique language.
Yes.
So the brand is key, because if you get a 6 to 8 second read on your resume and maybe 10 minutes of a recruiter's time, actual paying attention time on a phone screen interview. So if you are not clear about what you bring to organization, you're not going to advance at all. Now, the plan is important because you need to know who your audience is.
Right.
So part of the brand is, I know what I am, but who am I trying to talk to?
Right.
Because if you don't know who you're trying to talk to, if I reach out to Kelly Biskupiak and say, I want to help network with you, and she says, well, who are you looking to talk to? And I'm not clear, then she can't help me.
Or don't use this one either. Hey, I'd like to set up a call with you. I want to pick your brain. People are busy, and it already takes the big leap to even get yourself out there and ask.
It's just kind of a
conversation.
Yeah,
it really is.
Anyway.
It really is. However, if you are clear about what it is that you want to connect with this person about, that is going to make the meeting for both parties go a lot smoother.
And you think you don't have a network, particularly those who've taken a career break.
We hear this all the time.
You have a network.
You do.
And the network is usually closer than you think. We've had so many students find out that their best networking connection is their sister-in-law at the Thanksgiving table, or their hairdresser.
Oh, the hairdresser is knows everything.
But one of my best childhood friend got her job from her therapist.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many different people that are in your life. And if you start to look at the landscape of your life through the filter of, ooh, what does that person do? And who are they connected to? You will all of a sudden see, oh my gosh, I really do have a network.
One way to grow your network is to use your alumni, your either undergrad or graduate school alumni. So a little trick here, or tip, if you go, let's say you went to around here, the University of Connecticut, you go to University of Connecticut, you go to their homepage, click on alumni. It'll show you there are, hundreds of thousands of alumni, but you can filter through. You can filter by geography, by job title, by field of study. And you can get it down to a narrow, or even name of employer. So let's say I went to the University of Connecticut and I want to work at Goldman Sachs. I could go and it would show me all of the grads who went to Goldman Sachs. And I can go through and message them. Just say, hey, let's connect. I see we both went to UConn. And then if they connect with me, I can then follow up and say, hey, would you mind, could we meet for 10 minutes? I'm really interested in your work in financial services. For anybody who's active on LinkedIn, if it's just a simple reach out of connecting to a fellow alum, you've got about an 80, 90% chance they will connect with you.
Right.
And maybe a 40 or 50% chance that they'll meet with you. Very high numbers. especially when you consider a major university has a lot of alums. So try that trick for building your network. Right.
And the next bullet is actually, this is just really good for you to all know and understand, is this hidden job market. And Susan, why don't you explain?
Yeah, I mean, depending on whose numbers you believe, anywhere from 40 to 80% of jobs are never posted. So I can tell you from my world on the executive recruiting side that there were so many times that a job would be filled because the need existed, but we hadn't gotten to putting the posting out yet.
Yeah.
So if you think about it this way, many of us are moms.
Yeah.
You might know, I need to hire a housekeeper, or I need to hire a new nanny.
Right.
That the need precedes the actual action
Right.
of going for the job by days, weeks, and often months. So the idea of meeting with people and talking to them, not about what jobs are open at your organization, Kelly, but where are you strapped for talent?
Yeah.
Do you have people leaving? Is somebody being promoted?
Do they have intel about, something that's coming
A big deal that they might be
signed,
signed,
happening in the
a
organization,
merger, an acquisition, a big deal that might be signed. It's interrupting the market, because once a job has been posted, you're already in competition with thousands of other people. Yes. Potentially, and you run the risk that the job posting is just null anyway. Absolutely. Because we post jobs. I know I'm hiring her, but I still need to post the job to look like I'm an equal opportunity employer. And this happens all the time.
We have more students that have been hired using the hidden job market than any other, I think, strategy that they've used.
Well, another way to look at it is this. The average American, only 20% of Americans get their jobs by strictly applying online. Exactly. If you take out people whose jobs are very easily quantified, like application developers, software engineers, computer scientists, take them out, and then take out all the people who have completely perfect resumes with no gaps or pivots. Yeah. Right? It's probably 5%. Those they're not odds worth putting any time towards.
No. And here's the other thing. When you're applying online, you can get the false sense that you're doing a lot, that you're really job seeking. You put out this many applications today. You applied to this many positions. You're better served using that search engine to take a look at what jobs are out there, and then go back to LinkedIn and see who you know at those organizations, to get your resume in the hands of someone who is actually working in that department.
And who's actually going to make a decision, because the algorithm is not foolproof. It does miss good candidates.
Absolutely.
So even if you do check every box, which is not likely given our population, there's still a chance that you could slip through the cracks.
This next one, the building relationships with recruiters and hiring managers, again, I would say with our students, sometimes they get passed over for, say, a first job. We've heard this story so many times from our students, where they get passed over maybe for the first job, but they really built that relationship with that recruiter, and that recruiter says, I'm going to keep you in mind because I know that I'm going to get this that's going to come across my desk in another month or 2 months. And so I'm going to remember to circle back to you on those.
But they don't. So it's on you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So one example we had recently was a student who was trying to get into a specific piece of Amazon. And she was a pivoter. She had a great relationship with the recruiter. She didn't get the job, but she stayed in touch with her on a regular basis because recruiters have, gazillions of people reaching out to them. What you have to remember is people are always looking for hacks. How can I make my work life easier? A recruiter, if I know I liked Elizabeth, I probably forgot about her, but Elizabeth messages me. I look her up. Oh yeah, I liked her. And Elizabeth reminds me that, I made it through the third round and just didn't go my way. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, Elizabeth's good enough to make it through 3 rounds at Amazon. That's enough. She's been on top of this. She's sharp. I'm going to bring her in. That saves me a lot of time. I know she's going to show up and I know she's going to interview pretty well. So just think of it less as the recruiter's doing me a favor and more as I'm doing the recruiter a favor. We're helping each other.
Yeah, that's a good way to come at it. It's a good mindset to have. All right. So tool number 4 is your story. And your biggest job is to be unique and memorable. And you want to be connecting the dots. When you're telling your story, because you might have an unconventional career story, you want to be connecting the dots for the audience that you're speaking to.
So the reason you do this is you might have a great resume that shows 12 years working in, say, FP&A at, a big, pharma company, great, a lot of progression, good experience, then maybe a career break, short 3 years, and then re-entered into an analyst role. And now you want to get into more of an accounting role. Usually it goes the other way around, but whatever. So I am going to look at your resume for 6 to 8 seconds. I can't connect those. I'm not going to spend the time to connect those dots. You have to tell me in your profile statement, in your about section on your LinkedIn. I started out in big corporate FP&A and I loved it. I developed these excellent strategic skills, really knew my way around a balance sheet, took a short career break when my children were young. And during that time, I was the treasurer of the PTO. And in that case, I ran special projects in setting up an online pay system and creating a Stripe account and talking about your relevance. And then most recently, I moved into an analyst role. And in doing so, I realized I'm really interested in audit. So I'm looking to bring blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to figure that out. You have to tell me.
Yes.
So that's what we mean by connecting the dots. And connecting the dots can be in telling the story orally. It also, and most impactfully, happens when you create your resume and your LinkedIn, because that's what's going to help you get in. If I don't see those dots connected, I'm not going to see how you could fit on my team.
I think it's also really important when you're networking with someone and you're handing them your resume to then take somewhere else, just to spend some time really letting them know what your story is, connecting those dots for them, because they are going to be your voice going over there and handing it to whoever that could potentially be hiring you. And so spending time in that networking opportunity to be really clear about what your story is so that they can take that clarity on with them when they move on to the next.
And hopefully it's in print. So it's
right.
easier for that reader to figure it out.
Yeah. Or remember.
Right. When you're telling your story orally, many of you heard of the STAR method. We call it something else, but STAR. What was the situation? What were my tasks? What did I achieve or accomplish? And what was the result? It's a good framework for setting up your story, because you could have a great opening, but if you don't bring it home,
yes,
all I really care about at the end of your story is, did you win? Did you get the deal? Did you close the whatever?
Yeah. Or did you learn? And what did you learn? Right? Like if you
if it didn't go well, yes. I mean, generally speaking, if you're picking a story, pick one where you won.
Yes,
if you can, and take credit. So I tell a story in the course about these two people I interviewed that had the same job. And when one of them talked about the job, it was his idea, his project. He brought it in on time. He hired everybody. And she told me the same story 2 months later ago. And she was part of the team that helped do this. And when I realized they'd had done the same job, I was like, holy moly, I can't believe this is the same role. Yeah. Men typically, at least, if not over, tell and over account for their involvement and their accomplishments. Women tend to downplay them. So this is your story. When you're telling these stories, you're not telling about how nice your partner was. You're talking about what you did. I'm interviewing you. I'm not interviewing your team. I'm not interviewing your partner.
And I just want to say this is hard. And we see this with our students in our course all the time. They have a really hard time owning that they don't feel comfortable being the one that like did all of these things and then expressing that to someone else. And that's why it's so important for you to do that work that we've already talked about earlier in the course, earlier in the session, in terms of looking at your strengths, having conversations with other people about your strengths, because you're practicing talking about your strengths. And that's what you're going to do when you're telling these stories.
And when you're thinking about your stories, consider your audience. Who are you trying to reach?
Right.
What field, function, or organization? So sometimes you're really clear on what field you want to be in, and you're focusing on that field. But sometimes you're not really sure what you want to do, but you know you want to work at this organization. It's a different kind of story. And connect the story to what they want to hear. So in my example, an auditing team is not going to be terribly interested in strategic finance. So they're going to want to make sure, it's fine that I tell them that I did that, but they're going to want to know that I know the basics of debits and credits, that I know what good policy protocol look like, that I'm extremely detail oriented. These are the things, considering always the mindset of the person you're trying to connect with or sell. What do they need to hear? All right. And then we mentioned the story is going to be consistent on all the different platforms.
All the different platforms. You have to really make sure that you're doing that. And if you do not have a LinkedIn profile, you need a LinkedIn profile. Yeah. And I hope that because we're streaming on LinkedIn, that those of you that are listening do have a LinkedIn profile. Okay.
If you've taken a career break.
Oh, we forgot the R. Career. That's okay.
Oh, okay. Oops.
We should want to be Kara.
I'm from New York. If you've taken a career break, remember the 3 essential messages of that story.
Yes.
So this is unique just because
Yes.
the world, believe it or not, I mean, I've been in this field for 30 years. They're still not ready. They're still not understanding that, 50% of women take a career break and the other 90% take some type of pause, deceleration, or stall.
Yes.
So because of that, you need to educate them.
Absolutely. And this is the one thing that we really believe needs to be scripted. And so that's why it's set up in these 3 steps.
And you can make them your words, but some people just use these words.
Yes.
So Elizabeth is interviewing me and she asked me to tell her about myself. And that's often an introductory question, something general. Well, Elizabeth, you may have noticed that I've got a bit of a career break on my resume. I loved my work. I was really good at it. And it was a sacrifice to leave. But given my alternatives at the time, I just had 2 children. My mother was sick, whatever your situation is. It was the right decision. I'm glad I made it. During the time I was on that break, I tapped into and perfected my professional skills and expertise through community work. You'll see on my resume that I started a nonprofit. Caregiving. I became an POA, an advocate for my parent. Advocacy roles. I advocated to the state of Connecticut on behalf of neurodivergent children and increased funding in our school system by 20%, whatever it is. And I learned new skills too. For example, I had never done email marketing, but I learned to master Constant Contact and MailChimp and develop those skills as well. And then the third piece, you always want to start from, my kids are grown, my mother's here, whatever your
everybody's taking care
everything is fine. Everything, my family is all set. I have done my work and I am ready and eager to bring my professionals training experience, plus these new things that I've experiences that or skills I've honed over that period out of the paid workforce back in. And I'm so excited to be here with you, Elizabeth, today to learn more about the role and see if it's a fit for me and if I'm a fit for you. So always that 3-step.
Yes. Okay. So your resume and LinkedIn profile are important assets, as we said already. You're going to showcase your confidence and your positive mindset. That is what they're going to do. They're going to convey your brand clearly. They're going to tell your compelling story that we discussed, and they're going to open doors to execute your plan.
So when we teach resume and LinkedIn in the course, we do it in an interesting way. First of all, you don't start writing your resume till like the 4th or 5th week. And there's a lot of work that happens before. So
and you write your resume.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So you start by writing. And then before you finish writing your resume, we recommend this to anyone who's thinking of doing a resume, start your LinkedIn, get the foundation, the bones down of the resume, and then start your LinkedIn, because you'll find the LinkedIn platform is much more narrative. It's much more conversational. Sometimes once you start writing there, you can then transfer some of that writing over to the resume to make it a little more lively.
The momentum.
But in general, for both the LinkedIn resume and the paper resume, you want to focus on actions and experiences. The word responsibility should never be responsible for, should never be on your resume. You want to focus on context and scale. So use myself as an example, when I was in tech, I had a $50 million budget. When I was a president of the PTO, we raised $10,000. The $10,000 was a lot of money, but $10,000 to the people I'm talking to in my resume is like a joke. So I'm not going to say I raised $10,000. I'm going to say something like I grew revenue by 30% year over year. So you always want to focus on the context of the scale and make it the most attractive for your audience. Measurable results. Sometimes they're hard. Depending on the role you're in, it may not be a metric-centered role. However, if you were working for a company and during the time you worked for them, they grew, they were acquired, they bought, you were part of that.
Yes.
So just saying something kind of veiled, like, talk about what you did. And then during this time, the company was in such a strong financial position that they were purchased and their stock went up by X or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Find a way to make something measurable. Numbers on a resume really help. If you are pivoting, make a clear case for your transferable skills. Make it sound like it's so logical that I would go from a financial planning and analysis role into audit.
Yes.
Right? You have to, because you have to know that yourself, right? And then always make sure on the paper resume, particularly those of you who are either making a pivot or have a gap, that the experience that's going to matter to me most is on that first page. Yes. Now, most people will have a 2-page resume if they're over 30. We had one student who'd worked at Sony, Disney,
Yes.
Paramount. I forget. I know
She came to us from the Mom Project.
Yes, she
actually,
did.
yeah.
And she had an 18-year career gap and a lot of really cool experience.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the Sony until page 2.
Yeah.
So we had to go in and cut some stuff at the top to make sure that it's kind of above the fold, is what we say.
Yeah.
And always use lively language. We have a checklist of like the words never to use, but I'll give you a few of them. Mission driven, results oriented,
Team
player, servant leader.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that. Everybody's saying that put it this way. I am not going to hire anyone who's not results driven.
Right.
Like if you have to say that, that's like saying I have a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I have a pulse. We don't want to like start at like with the basic.
Right.
Okay.
And if you're using AI to help you, oftentimes a lot of these cliched pieces of language come through. So what we do is we say, go back to those conversations you had with people that when they were talking about your strengths and use their words to describe you. Use those words to pop in and take out, high achieving,
Results oriented.
Results oriented. Okay. All right.
Your goal is always to get in front of someone.
Absolutely.
So 90% of your time should be spent doing this and doing it well. So we talked about before, only 10% of your time should ever be spent on like looking at job boards. But here are some general ground rules for that face-to-face communication.
Yeah.
Introduce the gap or the pivot yourself. Do not wait. You don't sit in an interview and wait for Elizabeth to ask me why I took 18 years off or what I did during these 18 years, because then you're coming at it defensively. You lead with it. So you'll notice that when we put those 3 steps for explaining your career break, we lead with that. Yeah. Tell me about yourself. I'll tell you about myself.
And that's really showcasing your confidence that this is, like I'm going to let you know, I'm going to educate you as to why that's not even an issue.
It's not an apology. You're not justifying. No. You are explaining it intentionally, briefly, boldly, and then you're moving on.
Yeah. You own it. You control the narrative.
Absolutely. For always, for any, we call them the elephant in the room conversations, whatever it is, you need to lead with it. You do not wait for it to be asked of you. Follow the 90-10 rule. 90% of that focuses on your qualifications, 10% focus on whatever it is that's getting in your way. The break, the pivot, whatever.
Yes.
And script.
Yeah, you're going to script it. You're going to practice it. Again, that's all going to feed. And that's the action. All of this is the action that gets you to trying and putting yourself out there. That's going to build your confidence. All right. So 3 final job search truths. Go ahead.
So we're entering an economy right now we're exiting and entering an economy that is somewhat perplexing. Let's put it that way. So we don't really know what's happening. But what you do need to know is that good managers are always looking for great talent. Even when I didn't have any FTE left in my budget, if someone presented themselves and they were really good, I was going to find a way to get them on my team.
Yeah, this just happened in my husband's company. Yeah. They were hiring for an analyst position and they had a ridiculous amount of analysts that came through applying for this one position. And there were so many amazing candidates that they ended up really taking a look at the entire team and hiring 4 analysts after that happened. So they found the money, they found the way, they figured it out because there were really good candidates.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now that's a big company. Now a smaller company may not be able to do that, but very often, and I saw this a lot in my old company, they might be willing to bring you on a contract basis. If you are returning to work and you haven't been working and you're not putting food on the table alone, this is a great option because it's a great option for you to try things out and for them to try you out and just kind of get your feet wet. But different budgets. Full-time hiring is one budget. Contract work is just a steady, that doesn't get cut. When there's a hiring freeze, there's still money in the contract budget. Second truth, you have to know who you are, what you offer, what you want, and what differentiates you from others. And you need to be able to convey that clearly and memorably.
What makes you memorable?
Yep.
And then a good plan is only as good as it's executed. So you have to take that action, right? You have to create a schedule. If you don't so we always say that finding a job is a job and you need to look at it that way. You need to take it that seriously. You need to set up space in your home. You need to set boundaries with people in your life and not be saying so many yeses to everyone else's goals for this year, saying more yeses to your own goals so that you can make this happen for yourself. And you really want to put supportive people around you when you're going through this process. This process is a challenging process. We live in the trenches of it every day in the work that we do. And having supportive people around you that really understand how, it can feel icky sometimes. It's what keeps you going, even when it's hard and difficult. And take time to celebrate those small wins, those little pockets of, oh, that went really well, or I had this conversation and it felt so good, or I just learned something new that I didn't even realize, and now I'm going to go share it with my little supportive community because they're job seeking potentially too. So those are those Jumpstart truths we wanted to focus in on for you.
All right, good. We wanted to leave 10 minutes. We did.
Yeah.
If you want more help from us, you can find us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel that we have new content that comes out every week.
Yep.
That same content has been repurposed onto Spotify, so you can find us there. We have 3 courses on LinkedIn. If you want even more help, we are tomorrow holding an information session about our winter cohort of our career relaunch program. It's a 10-week program. You can learn all about it then. And we'll be getting some information from Elizabeth on the on this. You'll also be getting a few links to some of our YouTube videos. One is on exploring and assessing. So if you're kind of stuck in that, well, I don't really know what my audience is. I kind of know what I do, but I don't really know who my audience is. Take a look at that one.
Yeah.
If you're stuck in how to tell your story, there'll be one there too. There are 3 links to videos that go a little deeper into what we touched on today that you can find helpful. And please connect with us. Connect with us on LinkedIn. Connect us on LinkedIn. Like us on YouTube or follow us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Any way you can engage with us, we appreciate, and we really want to help you.
Yeah. All right. Great.
Thanks.
Elizabeth.
All right. We got
Thank
some
you all so much.
Okay.
There were so many amazing nuggets. I took so many notes for myself, but we have tons of questions, so I'm just going to dive right in.
Yeah.
Emily asks, what are the best ways to reestablish a broad professional network, especially when returning and pivoting?
I would say probably at least half of our students are doing both.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, because that means that you're not just saying, well, I've got to go back to what I did before. I have options.
Right.
If you go back, and this has been recorded, so you can look at this again, because I'm not sure when you joined us, but we talk about the professional network. It doesn't have to be, quote, people from your profession.
No.
Because
it could be at the bus stop.
it can be, I have a story on the course about
sidelines of soccer.
I think the key is, Emily, make sure that you're letting everybody know
You're talking
that you're
to
looking.
people. Yes.
And that's the first step, always, is let the
Absolutely.
people around you know. We had one student who, her husband was one of 10, and they were at Thanksgiving dinner, and she wanted to move into a customer success role, and she'd been working so hard from like the summer, and now it's the end of November, and she realized that her sister-in-law did that in the company where she wanted to work.
Right.
So make sure that you let people know. I think in terms of growing your network outside of those people, I'm a big believer in contacting old clients and colleagues.
Yeah.
They do not forget about you. They remember you. They remember you fondly. And even if it was 15 years ago, it feels like 15 minutes ago
Right.
to them.
They
will
help you.
absolutely help you. And many of them have moved on, and it's nice to see where they go. If you came from a very big company, a lot of them, like I did, have alumni pages. So all the GEs, the Xerox, the IBMs, all those companies have alumni pages on LinkedIn for people like you who have left. That's a great place to look. And as we discussed earlier, the college and grad school is a great place to build your network.
But when you're just getting started, start with just starting to look around at your own community, the people that cross your path on a daily basis, and just ask them, what are you working on? What's going on with your company? Is your company growing? Just to get yourself some information and start to grow that network.
Thanks, Emily. Good luck.
Okay. I'm sorry. One moment. Okay. Lisa asks, what's the best way to explain a 1 to 2 year career gap due to laid off followed by childbirth care on LinkedIn and resume? In addition to upskilling, what can I emphasize?
Okay. So one trip, not without knowing the cadence of your return, your leaving and returning, on your resume and on your LinkedIn, and this is new to LinkedIn within the last year, you can do this, only put the years of work. So if you can stretch it So for example, Lisa, if you took a 1 to 2 year career gap, it may even look like a year or less if you put just the years that you worked. And then it's not even worth bringing up. My general feeling is a 1 to 2 career gap year does not need a whole lot of explaining. I think what women tend to do is over explain, which then it appears like it's being apologetic. We don't want to do that. So the easiest thing to do would just be to say, if it really looks like 2 years, put 2022 to 2024, caregiving break, graduate school courses taken, and then just move on. But again, when you're interviewing, when you're networking, you will tell that story right up front. You'll say, well, you might notice that I haven't been formally employed since 2023. I had a child. I took a brief career break. During that time, I did X, Y, and Z, and I'm just ready to get back.
But if you are beyond the 1 to 2 years, the 2 year threshold, I think we usually say, right?
I always say, yeah.
Then you are not doing that. You're not putting that on yours. If you have more of a career break, you're going to find something in that time that you stepped away that's a value that's going to fill that gap on your resume. And if you want to learn more about that specifically,
oh my God,
and how to do that, we have a ton on our YouTube. We actually have a whole series of lessons that teach that specifically.
How to talk about your break. But the foundation is recognizing, it looks like she already did because she's done some upskilling, recognizing the work that you've done during that time and giving yourself credit to call it work.
Yeah. And I think we even have a webinar that we did for the Mom Project called Tricky Career Gaps. So if there was a mental health issue,
or your own health.
Yes, your own health. If there, maybe there was a divorce, maybe a number of tricky career gaps, and how to handle that. We have a whole webinar that we did specifically.
We do a deep dive. Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. Good luck.
Yeah.
So Laura asks, how do you connect with recruiters? It's been hard to get any traction with them or to find them.
Yeah. So with all due respect to recruiters, my general rule is to avoid them. Mm-hmm. When we work with our students, our goal is not to meet with a recruiter, it's to meet with a hiring manager. So recruiters typically don't have hiring authority. Yeah. The recruiter is a conveyor on the belt that takes you to the person who's actually going to hire you. So when you're doing your networking, when you're having those meetings to explore and assess different careers or to network with people from
jump that step.
Yeah, with, say a fellow alum from your undergraduate, it is looking to get in front of either existing team members or hiring managers that might need extra help. Mm-hmm. However, but if you are intentionally want to connect with a recruiter, it's basically using kind of the ways we say not to do it. So pinging a recruiter online, you're not going to get them to connect with you. They're only going to connect with you if they have a lot of jobs. Keeping in touch with the recruiter is different if you have an established relationship. But I would just say your goal should not be to connect with them. It should be connect with people doing the work, and even better, people hiring for those who are doing the work. Another thing to remember is that just having some empathy. Recruiters are very busy. There's obviously some that are very senior, but a lot of the ones that are doing that entry-level work, that are trolling LinkedIn for candidates, that are responding to job postings, are young, sharp, and overworked. So they don't have time. And sadly, many times they don't even get back to you after you've had an interview. It's not because they're bad people. It's because there are 50 managers telling them that their job needs to be filled. There are 5,000 applicants per job. It's just,
they're trying to whittle it down.
The math just doesn't work out for time. So don't feel insulted if a recruiter doesn't get back to you. Assume if they didn't get back to you, you didn't get the job, sadly. They will get back to you if you've got the job or if you've got the next interview. But to answer your question, Laura, don't try to connect with recruiters.
I was just going to say, do them a favor. Do the favor. Yeah. Don't even try to connect with them.
They'll reach out to you if they're hiring. Yeah. All right. Try to find the people who are doing the work or the people who are hiring the people doing the work. Okay.
Okay. Do you have time should we do one more and then we'll close out?
Yeah, we're fine. Good.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oh, sorry. Julie.
Yeah.
Technical issues. Okay. Should I be explaining a career de-acceleration?
Yes, I love this. So what I mentioned earlier is that 50% of women take a career break. Of the remaining 50%, 90% either stall or decelerate. Mm-hmm. So yes. So this would be something really easy to do in a LinkedIn, talk about your rapid progression, and then say, you know, in 2018, I had my first baby and made the decision to pause my work, slow my work down so that I could better balance work and family. It was important to me that I continued to develop my skills, keep my relationships current, and keep my foot in this work that I love. But I knew that at that time I could not give as much to my work as I would want. Now that my child is in school, I'm excited to accelerate and return back in, you know, however, whatever euphemism or metaphor you want to use, back into the fire or whatever. So it's easier to do on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It can be done on the resume, but the resume is confined by space and words. So you could just make it very clear. You know, you put the name of the role and just put an intentional career deceleration during a caregiving period. Like that would be enough. But Julie, when you get that first question, tell me about yourself, you're going to tell that story.
Yes.
Okay.
You're going to get it out of the way right up front. And again,
And not leave them.
That shows confidence, and it doesn't leave them guessing like,
Right.
well, what happened here and why, you know, why did she go from this to this?
Because I tell my kids this all the time. If you don't tell the story, they're going to make the story up.
Yes.
So let me also say something that I always say in our courses. If you have a big career gap, if in Julie's case, it's a significant deceleration, if you're making a big pivot and you go through an interview and you haven't volunteered this information and the interviewer doesn't ask you about your career break or about your career pivot or your deceleration, one of two things. They haven't read your resume yet. And when they read it, they're going to just throw your file out because now they know. Or two, they read it. They've already written you off. They're going through the motions. They've already created the narrative in their head and you're not going to get the job anyway. Right. That's why it's important for you to tell the story, to tell it early.
And to teach them how to treat you, right? It's you educating them.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Amazing.
I love
Okay,
how
well,
so professional.
thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Yes, we enjoyed it.
That was so informative. And to everybody who joined, I hope that you took something away for your career journey and beyond. I know I did. And as Susan and Kelly mentioned, I will be sending out an email with the recording and information about Prepare to Launch You and information about their courses and how to join them tomorrow for the informational session. But Susan and Kelly, thank you so much.
Elizabeth, it's always great to see you.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining us today. Good luck.
Yes.
We're in your court. We're in your corner right now, trying to help you out any way we can.
Yes, absolutely. We're all rooting for you. Well, thank you all so much. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.